The man they didn't notice it was a cool morning in a quiet California town, the kind where the air felt crisp and still, almost like the world was holding its breath. Birds circled above the low hills, and the rising sun painted golden streaks over the rooftops and dusty training grounds of an old private shooting range tucked away at the edge of town. It wasn't fancy, but it was well known among experts. Former military veterans, Olympic shooters, private security specialists, they all trained there. It was a place for the best of the best, and that's why no one noticed when a tall, soft-spoken man stepped quietly through the gate. Keanu Reeves wore a gray hoodie and faded jeans. His hands were in his pockets, and his face carried the calm of someone who'd seen too much and still chose to be kind. No cameras followed him. No bodyguards flanked him. Just him and a battered backpack. He stopped by the check-in booth and gave a small nod to the woman behind the glass. "First time?" she asked, looking at the clipboard. "Yeah," he said with a warm smile. "Just here to learn." She handed him a visitor badge without a second glance. She didn't recognize him. Neither did anyone else. Inside the main field, the action had already started. People moved with precision, checking weapons, shouting, over whistles and firing at targets in tight bursts. The sharp cracks of gunfire echoed through the trees. Most eyes were focused on one man, Tyler Ford. Tyler was a former Special Forces sniper and a legend in this place. His shooting speed, accuracy, and bravado made him a local hero. Tall, muscular, and loud, he carried himself like a star athlete. His followers, a group of young men dressed in tactical gear, hung on his every word. When Tyler spoke, others listened. And when he laughed, others laughed with him. "You see, boys," Tyler said as he fired another round and hit the bullseye. "Shooting's not about the gun, it's about dominance, confidence. You gotta own the field." Just then, Keanu walked over to an open lane at the far end. He didn't bring a custom case or a high-end rifle. Instead, he borrowed a standard Glock from the range officer. No one offered him help. No one asked if he needed instruction. He was just another face in the crowd, older, quieter, and clearly out of place. "Yo, old man," someone called, out from behind. "You sure you're in the right place? The yoga class is down the street." A few others laughed. Keanu smiled softly and didn't reply. He adjusted his ear protection and picked up the Glock with steady hands. He moved slow, careful, like every motion mattered. On the other side, Tyler rolled his eyes. "Don't waste your bullets, Grandpa. This place ain't for tourists." The rangemaster blew the whistle. Everyone stepped back. A timed drill was about to begin. 10 seconds to draw, fire 6 rounds, reload, and hit a moving target. Tyler went first. His performance was nearly flawless. 6 shots, 5 perfect hits, smooth reload, and another hit while the target spun away. People clapped. Someone whistled. Tyler gave a cocky bow. "Next," the master shouted. A few others went, none matching Tyler's precision. Then came Keanu's turn. He stepped forward quietly. The crowd was already losing interest. "Let's go, Mr. Hollywood," Tyler mumbled under his breath, not realizing how right he was. Keanu took a breath. The world seemed to slow. The whistle blew. His hand moved, quick, smooth, silent. The first shot split the target dead center. So did the second, then the third. 6 rounds in a perfect line. He reloaded faster than anyone had seen that day. The last shot struck the spinning target just as it curved out of range. The field went silent. No one clapped. They just stared. The rangemaster looked down at the digital monitor, then back at Keanu. Perfect timing. Perfect hits. No deviation. Keanu nodded once and stepped back. Tyler's jaw tightened. "Luck?" someone muttered. "Just luck." But Tyler wasn't smiling anymore. When the group returned to the bench area, Keanu sat by himself. He didn't brag, didn't explain. He just opened a water bottle and looked at the hills in the distance. That's when a young man from Tyler's crew walked over. "Hey," the kid said, awkwardly rubbing his neck. "Where'd you learn to shoot like that?" Keanu looked at him, eyes gentle. "Sometimes you learn best when you have no choice." The kid paused. "You military?" Keanu shook his head. Life teaches, if you listen. Before the boy could ask more, Tyler stormed over. You think you're clever, showing off like that? This isn't Hollywood, man. Keanu stood up slowly, not to intimidate, just to meet him eye to eye. I'm not here to compete, I'm here to learn. Same as you. Tyler scoffed. I've got nothing to learn from you. Keanu nodded again. Maybe not, but maybe someone else does. With that, he walked away. What no one knew yet was that Keanu Reeves had been training quietly with elite law enforcement for a film. Not for fame, not for clout, but because he respected their craft and wanted to honor it right. He had trained day and night for months, and he wasn't done yet. Later that afternoon, an unexpected storm rolled in. The range instructor decided to pause the exercises, but Tyler wasn't ready to let the moment go. How about a real challenge? He called out. You and me, one target, one shot, no scopes, just instinct. Keanu looked at him for a long moment, then slowly agreed. As they prepared, the wind howled and the sky darkened. A small crowd gathered under the shelter to watch. The target was placed far down the range, barely visible through the haze. One shot each. Tyler went first. He steadied his breath, fired, and struck near the center. People nodded in approval. Keanu stepped up. He didn't rush. He didn't blink. He just stood, felt the wind, and let his body settle. Then, calmly, he fired. The bullet struck the center so perfectly it split the red marker in two. The shelter went silent. The rain began to fall. Keanu turned, nodded respectfully to the crowd, and said nothing more. This was only the beginning. What would unfold next would not only shake the entire shooting academy, but reveal something far deeper than skill. Something about pain, purpose, and the reason Keanu Reeves never stopped learning, even when no one was watching. Whispers in the rain. The rain fell harder now, soaking the dry earth, turning the dust into mud. Most people ran for cover, laughing, and shaking off the cold drops as they huddled beneath the tin-roofed shelter at the edge of the range. But Keanu didn't move. He stood quietly beside the wooden post, watching the broken target sway in the wind. His hands were steady, his eyes calm. To him, the storm was nothing more than a passing visitor. Tyler, on the other hand, was fuming. He tried to laugh it off, slapping one of his crew on the back and saying, "Lucky shot, nothing more. Anyone can get one good pull." But even his closest followers could hear the doubt in his voice. The way his eyes kept darting toward the shattered marker gave him away. No one said it, but they were thinking it. He'd been outshot. As the storm passed, the instructors called for a break. Everyone scattered to the locker room and cafeteria area. Keanu walked in last, his clothes damp, hair wet, but face still, relaxed like the rain had washed off something heavier than just water. Inside, the air buzzed with low whispers. Not about Tyler, not about the usual drills, but about the quiet man with the steady hands. You know who he is, right? A young woman whispered to her friend by the coffee machine. That's Keanu Reeves, like John Wick Keanu Reeves. No way, her friend said, glancing over. I'm serious. Google him. Phones came out. Fingers moved fast. Soon, eyes turned toward Keanu with new interest, but he didn't notice. Or maybe he did and just didn't care. He sat at the far end of the cafeteria, next to a window still streaked with rain. He was eating a simple sandwich from his bag. No phone, no laptop. Just silence and thought. A man approached. He was older, maybe in his 60s, wearing a faded military jacket and a patch over his left eye. His name was Raymond, though most called him Ray. He'd served in 3 wars and trained hundreds of shooters, but now he worked quietly as an advisor at the range, watching, guiding, rarely speaking unless it mattered. He pulled up a chair across. From Keanu. You were trained, Ray said without introduction. Keanu looked up. I tried to be. That wasn't a try, Ray replied. That was mastery. Keanu gave a soft smile. I just respect the process. Ray studied him for a moment, then nodded. Most come here to prove something. You came here to feel something. Keanu said nothing. Ray leaned back. I've seen men shoot like that only after pain shaped their hands. Loss, grief, purpose. Which one was it for you? Keanu finally looked him in the eye. All of them. They sat in silence for a moment. There's more to this place than targets and scores, Ray said. This field, it humbles you. It brings out the truth. It tells you what kind of man you really are. Keanu nodded. I came to remember that. Ray stood. Then stick around. We've got a week of tests coming up. Close quarters, night drills, hostage simulations. Most of these boys only know how to shoot when the lights are on. Keanu looked up. I'll be here. That evening, the range turned quiet as most of the attendees left for their hotels or homes nearby. But Keanu stayed late, helping clean up the training dummies and reset the paper targets. One of the junior staff noticed. You don't have to do that, sir, he said. I want to, Keanu replied. It's part of the learning. Tyler stood at a distance, watching. His fists were clenched in his pockets. His pride was louder than the truth knocking at the back of his mind. He had always been the center of the class, the top shooter, the loudest voice. But now one soft-spoken man had done what no one else could. Outshoot him, outshine him, and do it all without making a sound. Later that night, in the small bunk room where a few stayed instead of going home, Keanu lay on the lower bunk, staring at the wooden boards above. Rain tapped gently against the window. A young man in the corner named Eli peeked out from his bed. Hey, Keanu? Yeah? Is it true you trained with real SWAT teams? Keanu took a moment before answering. Yeah, but not to show off. I needed to understand them. For a film. But more than that, I needed to understand myself. Why? Keanu turned his head slowly. Because sometimes, pretending to be strong makes you realize how broken you are. And sometimes, learning something hard helps you rebuild. Eli went quiet, then whispered, My dad was a cop. He got shot in the line of duty last year. I stopped training after that, but watching you today, I don't know, man, it made me want to try again. Keanu didn't reply right away. He simply reached over and placed a small patch on Eli's table. It was an embroidered SWAT unit badge. He would have wanted you to keep going. Eli's eyes welled up and he nodded quietly. By day 3, the entire class had shifted. People no longer laughed when Keanu stepped up. They watched. They listened. He wasn't just hitting targets. He was teaching, without words. His movements, his patience, his respect for the rules and the weapon, all of it became a silent lesson in humility. But Tyler wasn't done yet. He pulled aside one of the trainers and whispered, Add pressure to the next drill. Darkness. Multiple threats. Let's see if Hollywood can handle real stress. The trainer, unsure, hesitated. That's not protocol, Tyler. Just do it, Tyler said. Unless you're afraid he'll make us all look bad again. The trainer reluctantly agreed. That night, the drill changed. The lights were cut, sirens blared, flashing red lights and fake gunfire erupted from the trees. The scenario, a hostage situation. Timed, limited ammo, unknown number of threats, people scattered in teams. Confusion filled the air. Keanu was alone, and then he moved. Not fast, not flashy, but with absolute focus. He crouched low, eyes scanning. His breathing slow, each step deliberate. He avoided the noise and found the heart of the simulation. 3 fake hostiles, 1 mannequin hostage. He fired 3 shots, then stopped. An instructor ran in. You missed one. Keanu shook his head. No, the last one was unarmed, hiding, scared. He wasn't a threat, the instructor paused, then checked the script. He was right. That unarmed target was a plant, meant to test if someone would shoot without thinking. Tyler had failed it earlier. Keanu hadn't. The room grew still. Ray, standing in the dark with folded arms, whispered to himself, He doesn't just shoot, he thinks, he sees. When the lights came on, no one clapped, not out of disrespect, but because they didn't want to break the silence that had suddenly become sacred. Keanu Reeves, the quiet man in the hoodie, had changed something in them. Not just how they shot, but why they shot. And in the days to come, that change would ripple far beyond this little training ground in California. Because someone from the government had been watching too. The letter, the agent, and the ghost. The sun returned the next morning, rising slowly over the wet hills and foggy trees, casting golden light across the range. The ground still held moisture from the night storm, and puddles reflected the early rays like scattered mirrors. The air was fresh, but there was something different about the atmosphere. A new kind of tension. Not the kind made by noise or conflict, but the kind that comes before something big, something no one sees coming. Keanu stood at the edge of the range once again, quiet, focused, holding his Glock with both hands. He wasn't practicing like the others. He was breathing, listening, watching. Every part of him was still, except his mind, which was always moving. In the small operations room just behind the range, Ray was reading a letter he had received early that morning. The envelope had no return address, just a simple wax seal and his name written in neat, sharp handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of thick white paper. It read, "You have a man in your program who does not belong, but he is exactly where he's needed. Observe him closely. He may be the answer we weren't expecting." No signature, just a black ink mark at the bottom, a triangle with a circle in the center. Ray folded the letter slowly. His hand trembled a little. He had seen that mark before. Not in books, not in theory, but in real life. Years ago, during a covert training mission overseas, that mark had been stitched into a patch worn by a woman no one had ever been able to trace. She had shown up, trained with special forces for 3 days, and then disappeared. No background, no file, just skills, silence. And that mark, that same mark, was now linked to Keanu Reeves. By mid-morning, a sleek black SUV pulled into the dusty parking lot. It didn't belong to any of the students or instructors. The vehicle had tinted windows, federal, plates, and a small antenna hidden beneath its rear spoiler. When the door opened, a tall woman stepped out. She wore a dark suit with no name badge, sunglasses, and carried a small tablet in one hand. She walked with purpose, straight to the check-in booth, and spoke only one sentence. "I'm here to observe." She was let through without question. No one dared to stop her. On the training field, a new simulation was being prepared. This one was called the Ghost Drill. It was designed for only the most advanced students. The challenge was simple. Locate and neutralize a hidden shooter positioned somewhere across the 40-acre range, using nothing but clues and instinct. No help, no maps. And only one round. Tyler volunteered first. He strapped on his gear, smirked at Keanu from across the field, and said, "Let's see if you can chase a ghost better than I can, Hollywood." He disappeared into the trees. 20 minutes passed, then 30. Finally, a buzzer rang. Tyler returned, out of breath, frustrated. Mud on his face. "Didn't find him," he grunted. "No signs, no movement. Ghost drill's broken." Ray shook his head. "Ghost drill isn't broken, your focus is." Tyler scowled but said nothing. Then came Keanu's turn. He said nothing as he accepted the rules. He walked into the trees, alone, with nothing but a single bullet in his pocket and a basic pistol at his side. No one spoke as the minutes ticked by. The agent, still wearing her sunglasses, leaned slightly forward, watching the monitor screen linked to the range's hidden drones. Keanu didn't follow the normal path. Instead, he moved along the edges of the terrain, avoiding obvious signs, using shadows, and even using the echo of distant birds to estimate movement. He paused under a broken tree, picked up a spent casing, and touched it to his cheek. It was still warm. He turned left, crouched low, and scanned the tree line. There, in a narrow gap between two rocks, was the glint of glass. He closed one eye, lined up his pistol, took a breath, and fired. The buzzer sounded 2 seconds later. Direct hit. He had found the ghost. On the monitor, the agent smiled slightly. In the control room, Ray whispered, "How is he doing this?" No one had ever completed the ghost drill on their first try. No one, until now. As the crowd gathered to congratulate him, Keanu walked back slowly. He didn't raise his arms. He didn't smile big. He just nodded once and returned the pistol to the rack. But before he could step away, the agent approached him. "Keanu Reeves," she said plainly. He looked up. "Yes? You trained with SWAT, Navy Tactical, Israeli Counter-Intel. I know your records." He didn't reply. "Why are you really here?" she asked. Keanu looked out over the hills and said, "Because somewhere in this world a young man is watching someone train. And maybe he's scared. Maybe he's been broken. But if he sees that it's possible to keep going, then maybe he won't give up." The agent tilted her head slightly. "So this is about hope?" Keanu nodded. "Always has been." She looked at him for a long time, then handed him a card. It had no name, just a contact number and a symbol. The same, triangle and circle. "If you're ever ready for something bigger," she said, "call me." Then she turned and left. That night, the mood at the bunkhouse was quiet. Tyler sat alone in the dark, staring at the floor. His pride was gone. What was left was the truth. Not just that he'd been beaten, but that the man who beat him didn't even seem to care about winning. Eli approached him slowly. "You okay?" he asked. Tyler laughed, but it was hollow. "Never thought I'd be the one getting left behind." Eli nodded. "He didn't come here to beat you. He came to be better." "Yeah," Tyler whispered. "That's what hurts the most." Keanu, from across the room, watched in silence. He didn't interrupt. He knew some things couldn't be rushed. Healing was one of them. The next morning, Tyler approached Keanu as he packed his bag. "Hey," he said, voice quiet. "I was wrong about you. I let ego talk louder than respect." Keanu smiled gently. "We all do. It's how we grow." Tyler paused, then extended his hand. "Teach me?" Keanu looked down at the hand, then shook it firmly. "We teach each other," he replied. And just like that, the biggest rival became something better, a student. But the story wasn't over yet, because as Keanu prepared to leave the range, a black envelope was slid under his door. Inside it was a photo. A young girl, maybe 12, standing beside a man in military uniform. On the back were 6 words written in red ink. "She needs you. Now more than ever." Keanu stared at it for a long time. And then, quietly, he put on his jacket, zipped up his bag, and walked into the sunrise. Something bigger had just begun. The girl behind the photo, KeanuReeves, drove through the desert alone. The sun was low in the sky, casting long shadows across the cracked road. In his hand was the photo, worn at the edges now from how often he had looked at it. The girl in the picture had large eyes, bright and kind, but filled with something else too. Worry, fear, maybe pain. Beside her stood a man in uniform, tall and proud, but his smile seemed forced, like he knew something was wrong and didn't know how to fix it. The photo had no names, no address, just those 6 words on the back. "She needs you, now more than ever." Keanu didn't know why. They sent it to him, but something in his heart wouldn't let him ignore it. He drove until the road ended, then followed a narrow path between dry trees and quiet hills. Eventually, he reached a small town, barely more than a few streets, and a faded diner with flickering lights. A sign read, "Welcome to Elbridge," but the letters were chipped, almost like the town had stopped welcoming people long ago. At the diner, Keanu sat at the far end of the counter. He ordered black coffee and asked the waitress a question. "Do you know this girl?" He showed her the photo. She leaned closer, adjusted her glasses, and frowned. "Yeah, that's Lila. Lives out by the hills. Stays with her uncle now." "Poor thing." Keanu looked up. "What happened to her father?" The waitress hesitated, then leaned in. "He was Army, local hero. Came back from his last deployment. Different. Quieter. People say he found something. He shouldn't have. Then he vanished. No goodbye, no body, just gone. Lila's been searching ever since. Says he left her clues. Says someone's watching her. Keanu's eyes narrowed. Is someone? The waitress nodded slowly. 3 weeks ago, her teacher found her crying behind the school gym. Said someone tried to break into her uncle's house. Keanu's grip on the coffee mug tightened. Where can I find her? An hour later, Keanu stood in front of a rusted gate that led to a small wooden house tucked at the edge of the forest. Weeds grew wild along the fence. The windows were dusty. An old bike lay tipped over near the porch. It looked like the kind of place the world had forgotten. He knocked twice. No answer. Then, a soft voice behind him. Who are you? He turned. There she stood, Lila. The girl from the photo. Her eyes were the same, deep and searching. But her hair was shorter now, and she wore a thick hoodie 2 sizes too big. She held a slingshot in one hand, pointed low but ready. Keanu smiled gently. My name is Keanu. Someone sent me your photo, said you needed help. Her eyes narrowed. You could be one of them. I'm not. Prove it. Keanu thought for a moment, then slowly reached into his bag and pulled out a small badge. The same SWAT badge he had given Eli. This belonged to someone who helped people. Someone brave. Your father was brave, wasn't he? Her lips trembled. Then she looked down. He told me if anything ever happened, I should look for the man who doesn't talk much, but listens more than anyone else. Keanu nodded. That's why I'm here. She opened the gate. Inside the house, Lila showed Keanu a wooden box hidden beneath a loose floorboard in her room. Inside were letters, hand-drawn maps, and a flash drive. My dad said they were after him because of this, she whispered. He found something bad during his last mission. He said someone high up didn't want it getting out. Keanu plugged the flash drive into his old laptop. What popped up was a series of encrypted files, footage from a desert base, and one video file labeled Truth MP4. Keanu clicked play. On screen, her father appeared, worn, tired, breathing hard. If you're watching this, he said, it means they found me, and it means my daughter isn't safe. What we uncovered was a program, something buried deep under Base 71. It wasn't just weapons. It was experimentation, live tests, civilians. They covered it up. They threatened me. But I saved everything. Protect Lila. Protect the truth. The screen went black. Keanu looked at Lila. Has anyone else seen this? I don't know, but my uncle got a call last week. Then he disappeared too. Keanu stood slowly. Pack a bag. Only what you need. We can't stay here on Bilar. Where will we go? Somewhere they can't find us. As they stepped outside, Keanu spotted something. A car. Dark, parked too far to be normal, but close enough to watch the house. He stepped in front of Lila, pulled her behind him, and whispered, Stay down. The car's engine roared. It sped away. Keanu memorized the plate. They drove through the night back toward the training grounds. The safest place Keanu knew. A place with walls, with watchers, with people like Ray. But when they arrived, something was wrong. The gates were open. No guards, lights off. Keanu parked the car and stepped out, motioning for Lila to stay inside. As he crept forward, he saw signs of struggle. Overturned chairs, broken glass, bullet holes in the training shed wall, and then silence, until a faint voice broke it. Keanu. It was Ray, wounded, lying behind a crate. Keanu rushed to him. They came, Ray said, his voice weak. They knew you'd come back. They want the girl, they want the files. Who? Keanu asked. Ray handed him a name, scribbled in blood on a torn paper. Director Hale, Project Scorched Veil. Then he passed out. Keanu carried him to the car. Lila was shaking now. What's happening? We're not alone anymore, Keanu said. And now, It's not just about truth. It's about survival. They drove. Toward the mountains, toward a place Keanu once trained in silence for a film role, but really to hide from a world that kept taking from him. And in those mountains, he would teach Lila what her father taught him, how to survive, how to fight, and how to find the truth. Because someone had started a war, and they picked the wrong man to chase. Fire in the mountain, Keanu Reeves, and Lila reached the cabin by dawn. It stood high in the San Bernardino Mountains, hidden by thick pine trees and long-forgotten trails. Cold mist curled around the ground, and the air smelled of pine and ash. The place had no electricity, no cameras, no noise. Just quiet. Just space. It was perfect, not because it was safe, but because it gave them time. And time was the only thing they had left. Keanu moved fast. He reinforced the doors, checked the perimeter, and buried a backup radio in a waterproof case behind the cabin. Layla watched him closely, silently following every step. "This place? You built it?" she asked. He nodded. "Long ago. I used to come here when the world felt too loud." "Did you always train for stuff like this?" He paused. "No. I trained for movies. But then life made me use what I learned for real." They sat by the fire that night, sharing canned food and silence. "I miss him," Lila said softly. "My dad." Keanu nodded. "He's still with you, in what he left behind, and in you." "Do you think he's alive?" Keanu looked into the flames. "I think if he believed you were in danger, he'd never stop trying to reach you." She smiled, small and sad. "Then I won't stop trying to reach him either." Over the next 2 days, Keanu trained Lila. He didn't push her hard. He didn't yell. Instead, he taught her like her father would have wanted, with patience, care, and quiet strength. He showed her how to track steps in soft ground, how to breathe through fear, how to listen to the wind for signs of movement. He set up obstacle drills in the forest and taught her how to handle a small training pistol. "It's not about pulling the trigger," he told her. "It's about knowing when not to." She nodded, eyes serious, never once looking away. The third day, Keanu powered up an old laptop using solar chargers. He inserted the flash drive again. This time, he used a decryption tool he hadn't touched in years. A tool gifted to him by a former intelligence officer who had once said, "Keep this just in case the world starts lying louder than usual." The screen opened. Rows of files appeared. Videos, documents, maps. Project Scorched Veil, a black ops program run through a fake medical research company. The files revealed illegal experiments done on veterans suffering from PTSD, using untested technology to manipulate memory, emotion, and behavior. The goal? Create soldiers who wouldn't question orders, soldiers who wouldn't feel guilt. But something had gone wrong. Some of the test subjects had vanished. Others had snapped. One of them was Lila's father. His name was Captain Nolan Hayes, and he had tried to stop it. But the deeper Keanu read, the more he saw the truth. Nolan hadn't disappeared by accident. He had been taken. As the wind picked up that evening, Keanu and Lila sat by the fire again. "They did this to him, didn't they?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Yes," Keanu said gently. "Can we stop them?" He looked at her, and didn't answer with words. He pulled a folded sheet from his bag, a contact card. The same one the agent had given him. Triangle and circle. He handed it to her. "You're ready to help me do that?" Lila didn't even blink. "Yes." Keanu took a breath, then dialed the number. The call lasted less than 2 minutes. A female voice on the other end said only one sentence. "You're being hunted, and you're not alone." The call ended. Keanu stared at the phone. "We have to move." "Why?" He turned toward the window. "Because they're already here." Outside, the wind was no longer the only sound. Boots on gravel, branches snapping, figures in black gear moving between trees. Fast, quiet, trained. They surrounded the cabin like wolves. Keanu pulled Lila behind the main wall and whispered, "Remember, What I taught you. Stay low, breathe slow, follow the escape tunnel when I say go. But, no but, trust me. She nodded, lips trembling, but eyes brave. Keanu stood, grabbed a smoke flare, and lit it. Thick gray smoke filled the front of the cabin. He used it as cover, moving silently through the side door, flanking two of the intruders before they even realized he was gone. With a branch he'd sharpened earlier, he struck fast, knocking. One down, grabbing the other's radio. Unit 3 down. The voice on the other end said, "Targets are on the move." Keanu spoke into the radio, low and calm. "Your plan is broken. Go home." "Who is this?" "Someone you should have left alone." He smashed the radio, then yelled, "Now, Leela!" She darted through the floorboard hatch, crawling through the narrow tunnel Keanu had dug years ago for solitude, now used for survival. As gunfire broke out above, she reached the woods. Keanu followed, covering her exit with a smoke grenade he'd saved from the training range. Together, they disappeared into the trees. They ran until their lungs burned. Then they walked until the stars appeared. Finally, they reached a small clearing near an old ranger station. They slept in turns. Keanu kept watch all night. The next morning, a message came through the encrypted laptop. "We saw the footage. Help is coming. Location locked. Keep moving." Below it was a name. Nolan Hayes. Alive. Location, classified. But the coordinates were attached, and the mission became clear. They weren't just running anymore. They were going to get him back. But, just as they packed up, a sudden buzz sounded from the laptop. A second message appeared. This time not from the agent. It was short. It was cold. "You were warned. She dies next." Keanu stared at the screen. His hands didn't shake. His breath didn't falter. He closed the laptop slowly, then turned to Lila. It's time to end this. Because they didn't just threaten him. They threatened the one person he had promised to protect. And now, the man they had ignored at the shooting class was about to become their biggest mistake. The one shot that changed everything. The night was dark and heavy, as Keanu Reeves and Lila made their way through the narrow path, leading to an old decommissioned bunker deep in the Mojave Desert. Above them, the sky was full of stars, but neither of them looked up. They had one goal now: rescue Lila's father, Captain Nolan Hayes. Nothing else mattered. They had been walking for hours, using the cover of shadows and rocks. Keanu moved, like water, silent, patient, unstoppable. Lila followed him, her steps careful, her eyes sharp. She was no longer just a scared girl. She was focused. She was strong. They reached a rocky slope just above the bunker entrance. Keanu signaled for her to stop. Down below, lights flickered. Guards moved along a narrow path. Cameras panned every 10 seconds. This wasn't just a military hideout. It was a private prison, hidden under the name of research and controlled by a program called Scorched Veil. Keanu whispered, "Wait here. I'm going in alone." Lila shook her head. "No, we do this together." He looked at her for a long moment, then gave a single nod. "Okay, but stay close. No hero moves." She smiled slightly. "I learned from you." Using an old maintenance shaft behind the east hill, they slipped into the bunker unseen. The walls were cold and lined with steel. Keanu moved first, disabling a guard with one precise strike to the neck, then catching his body before it could fall. They stole a badge and used it to access the lower levels. Each hallway was worse than the last. Dim lights, peeling paint, and rooms that reeked of chemicals and silence. In one of the chambers they found files, folders filled with photos of test subjects. Most had no names, just numbers. "This is real," Lila whispered. "They really did it. And they'll keep doing it if we don't stop them," Keanu replied. They finally reached cell 17. Inside, chained to a metal chair, was Captain Nolan Hayes. He looked older than the photo. Thinner, bruised, but alive. "Dad," Lila whispered, tears in her eyes. He looked up slowly. His eyes widened. "Lila?" Keanu moved fast, breaking the lock with a steel rod. Nolan collapsed into his daughter's arms. You're real. I thought they… Shh. We're getting you out, she said. But as they turned to leave, an alarm blared. Red lights flashed. Across the walls, containment breach. Sector 3. Footsteps thundered down the hallway. Keanu pushed Lila and Nolan toward the emergency exit. Go, now. What about you? Lila cried. I'll hold them back. Follow the blue pipe until… You see the ladder? Climb it and run north until you find the old transmission tower. The agent will meet you there. Lila hesitated, but Nolan pulled her. We have to trust him. They ran. Keanu turned to face the hallway. 4 men in black gear appeared. They raised their rifles, but Keanu had no gun. Just one bullet. The same bullet he had saved since the shooting range. He pulled it from his pocket, loaded it into the pistol he had taken off the guard, and closed his eyes. He waited. Breathe in. Breathe out. As the first soldier stepped forward, Keanu fired. The shot flew straight, hitting a fire sprinkler pipe above the guards' heads. The pipe exploded, sending boiling steam into the hallway. Chaos erupted. Keanu moved fast, dodging around the corner, using shadows and smoke to his advantage. He disarmed one attacker, used his elbow to crack another's helmet, and rolled behind. Cover. But there were too many. He took 2 hits, one to the arm, another grazing his leg. He fell, but he smiled because he knew. They were out, hours later. Lila and her father stood beneath the old tower, wrapped in thermal blankets, as a black chopper landed beside them. The agent stepped out, the same woman from the shooting range. Where's Keanu? She asked. Lila shook her head, crying. He stayed behind. The agent's eyes narrowed. She turned to her team. Go, now. Bring him back. The team raced back into the desert. Keanu lay in the corridor, blood on the floor, eyes half closed. But he wasn't alone. A soft voice echoed. You didn't have to stay. He looked up. The agent knelt beside him, her face calm, her hand holding a med kit. But you did, like always. He smiled faintly. They were just kids. She wrapped his arm. You're not done yet. He laughed softly. Thought that one shot was supposed to end everything. It did, she said, but it also started something new. Weeks passed. Project Scorched Veil was exposed. Whistleblower documents were leaked to trusted journalists. Government investigations followed. Arrests were made, and one photo went viral around the world. Lila hugging her father as he stood in front of the press giving a short but powerful speech. My daughter believed in me, and a stranger protected her when the system failed. But the man in the background of the photo, in a hoodie, cap low, standing quietly away from the cameras, was never named, because Keanu Reeves didn't want credit. He just wanted peace. Back at the range, months later, Tyler stood on the firing line again. This time, his aim was better, his hands steadier. But more than that, his heart had changed. He wore a patch on his arm now. It said, respect, resilience, humility. A new foundation had started, training young adults in honor, discipline and ethics, founded by Keanu, run by Ray, and visited by one girl every summer, Lila, now stronger than ever. One afternoon, as students trained under the golden sky, someone called out, "There he is!" Keanu walked onto the field. A bit older now, a little slower, but with the same quiet power in his eyes. He nodded to the group. No speech, no fanfare, just presence. Eli walked over. You coming back to teach? Keanu smiled. I never left. And somewhere nearby, a single shot echoed in the distance. Clean, perfect, full of purpose. The kind of shot that didn't need to be explained. Because the man who took it wasn't proving anything anymore. He was just honoring the truth.